right. Good day, everybody. I hope that you are well and also hope you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade 4 English lesson on sentence creation. I'm not sure if it updated to grade 4 because the first time I put grade 3. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. All right. So we are doing our grade 4 English lesson on sentence creations, right? And we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of sentence creations, right? And we see that chapter is sentence creation. All right, so we said our chapter is sentence creation. Our subject is English language art, grade 4. And the lessons that we're going to be focusing on today is to order the words to create a sentence and to create a sentence based on a model. All right. So when it comes to sentence creations, right? Sentences are made up of different parts that follow a specific pattern, right? And when it comes to sentences following a specific pattern, there's a standard order for a declarative sentence, or let's say the standard order for declarative sentences, right? Which is a statement, is subject, verb, and object. All right, so we said sentences are made up of different parts that follows a specific pattern. And if we really look at a standard order sentence, right? A standard order for declarative sentences, and a declarative sentence is a statement, right? It's like basically just anything random that you would say. I have two siblings. All right, so we say the standard order for a statement or declarative sentence, right, is where we first use the subject that tells us who or what is doing the action, the verb, the action that is taking place, as well as the object that usually comes after the verb. All right, so we said sentences are made up of different parts that follow a pattern. So also when it comes to sentences making or using a different part, right? Words that tell you where or when, they often come at the end of a sentence. All right. And we say that also once again, when it comes to sentence creation, right, there is a standard order for declarative sentences, and that is to first use a subject, use a verb, and then we use an object. All right. So let's look at the sentences, right? Because remember, we need to create sentences. And when we create sentences, then with any sentence, a standard sentence, right? Or a sentence that we would call a complete sentence, then it has a subject and it has a verb, firstly, right? And a subject is usually telling us either who or what did the action, right? Can be a person, can be a place, can be a thing. So it has a standard subject, but then it also has a standard verb. So with every subject, where it tells us either who or what is doing the action, it can be Peter, it can be John, it can be whoever that is doing the action. But when doing the action, right, we also have the specific action that is being done, right? That is basically almost like a standard order whenever we write a sentence, right? But now, a standard order for declarative sentence is the subject, the verb, as well as the object. All right. So, words that tell you where or when, they often come to the end of a sentence, and that we call an object. All right. So, now let's quickly go to our tutorial, which is aplusstudents.ca, and we're going to continue from there, right? Okay. So if we look at this, right, it says sentences are made up of different parts that follow a sentence or follows a specific pattern that we need to follow. And usually the pattern that we use that we need to follow, right, or the standard order that we need to follow is where you have a subject, you have a verb, and then you have your object. And that is how it is in order when you need to basically write down a sentence. And the standard order for a declarative sentence, right? It's like a statement, is where we have our subject, tells us who is doing the action. It's a verb, it tells us who the action that is being done, right? So when we have our standard sentence, right, and the order in which a sentence needs to be written, right, then we know that some of the words that also tell us where or when, they often come to the end of a sentence. All right. So if we look at the table, right? On the one side, we have subject, and then we have verb, and then we have our object, and then we also have where, when, right? That will tell us also where, and they will tell us when. All right, if we look at the standard sentence, we can say Aaron baked a cake. Aaron baked a cake. That was quite easy because Aaron is our subject. All right, so we can say Aaron baked a cake, right? And in this case, Aaron is our subject. The action that Aaron is doing, right, that tells us what Aaron is doing is baked because that is what she's doing. That is the verb. And then an object, right, is what is she doing? She is baking a cake. So a cake is our object. So now we go to the next sentence. It says elephants live with their families. All right. So if you look at the word at the bottom, right, it says my brother Marcus will read the book at the library. So where? At the library, right? So my brother Marcus is our subject. We are talking about the brother Marcus. All right. So when it comes to sentence creations, right, we said there's a standard order that we need to follow where we have a subject, we have a verb, and we have an object, right? But remember, all sentences starts with a capital letter and all sentences ends with a period or it is it basically ends with a question mark or exclamation mark, right? All right, so if we look at a sentence, right, that we are going to be creating ourselves now, right? It says we need to put this in order. It says from eggs all crocodiles hatch, right? If we look at that sentence from eggs all crocodiles hatch, we need to put that sentence in order. How are we going to put that sentence in order? Starting by subject, then verb, then agreement. So subject, the verb, and then the object, sorry. Right, so if we look at that sentence, we need to use the words, we need to use these words, which is from eggs, all crocodiles hatch. And we need to put that in a sentence. We need to write it in a sentence, right? Remember, we need to start with the subject. So if we need to start with the subject, then we are going to say, all crocodiles, right? What is the action that they are doing? They hatch, right? And the object, from eggs. So basically, this is now our sentence that we created based on jumbled up words that was given to us. So all crocodiles hatch from eggs. All right, so that is basically our sentence that we created. We have our subject, we have our verb, and then we have our object, right? All right, if we look at the next one. All right, so if we look at these words, right, we're going to have to use these words that are jumbled up, and then we are going to write a sentence, right? We're basically going to put it in its order of subject, verb, and object. It says her speech, the is practicing. So how are we going to put that sentence in, like how are we going to put it correctly and in order? All right, so if we look at that sentence, right, that is all jumbled up, we can start by our subject, right? And our subject is the mayor. And now we move on to our verb, all right? So what is the mayor doing? Is practicing. So he's practicing, and then we can say her speech. So this is now how we basically put our sentence in order. And we put it in order in manner of, we have our subject, which is the mayor, right? We have the verb, which is practicing. And then we have our object. What is she practicing? Her speech, right? So that is how it is when we create sentences. You need to put it in its order, especially with the declarative sentence, we put it in its order. All right. So we have the maze practicing a speech. There we looked at that one. Now if we scroll down, there we already, that one is put in its, okay, no, it's not. Yeah, it is. William Shakespeare wrote popular plays, right? That one is already put in its order. William Shakespeare, which is our subject, wrote is our verb, and popular plays is our object, right? And remember, whenever we either write a sentence, right? A sentence starts with a capital letter and it ends with an end mark or a period. All right, so now let's go to our test, where we're going to order the words to create a sentence. We're going to put the words in order to create a sentence. And that is what it means by ordering words to create a sentence. All right, if we look at the first one, it says, put the tiles in order to make a sentence. Do we say her speech, the mayor is practicing, or the mayor is practicing her speech? Option one or option two? All right, and if you put that in order, we are going to, yes, choose either one or choose either two. One says her speech, the mayor is practicing, or is it the mayor is practicing her speech, where we have our subject, a verb, and we have our object, right? So yes, we are going to do the second. We're going to the second one. So well done. Put the tiles in order to make a sentence. We have rare materials, Earth's crust contains, or the second option, which is Earth's crust contains rare materials. Is it rare materials, Earth's crust contains, or Earth's crust contains rare material? Is it option one or option two? All right, and if we choose the correct one, we can say Earth's crust, which is our subject, contains, which is our verb, and rare materials, which is our object. So Earth's crust contains rare materials. All right, and if we put the tiles in order, yes, and then we're going to say it is the second one. All right, the second one is correct. Now we need to put the tiles in order to make a sentence, right? To make a sentence. Do we say your rib cage, your lungs protects? Or do we say your rib cage protects and then your lungs? All right. So here we say your rib cage, your lungs protects. Remember, we have a standard order that we need to follow, right? We have our subject, we have our verb, and then we have our object, right? The second one says your rib cage, which is our subject, protects, which is our verb, and then we have your lungs. All right, so the second option is in the right option. Yes, well done. Your rib cage protects your lungs. That one is correct. All right. The next one says startled, the loud siren, or me. Or if we put it in order, we can be like the loud siren, startled, and me. All right. So if we then put these tiles in order, we're going to go to the second option because the loud siren or the loud sound or siren startled me. All right, then the second option is correct. All right, let's do the last one. It says, you need to put this in order. It is commanded Jackie's purple hair our attention. Or do we have, is it, or if it's the next one that says Jackie's purple hair commanded our attention. And if we put those styles in order, we can say Jackie's purple hair commanded our attention. All right, and if we choose the second one, we'll say, an earth rattled the windows. All right, so we create the sentence based on the model, right? And we're going to find out what the model means. It says, in order to make your writing more interesting, we need to try to use a mixture of different kinds of sentences. So now, to make your writing more interesting, we need to try and mix or use a mix of different kinds of sentences, right? And remember, we said a sentence has a subject, a verb, as well as an object, right? So you can learn to make new kinds of sentences, sorry, by imitating sentences that you have read. So to imitate a model sentence, we first need to look at the form or the pattern, right? And ask ourselves, we need to ask what kind of words is being used, phrases, and clauses as a sentence uses, what order they are in. All right, so we said in order to imitate a model sentence, we need to look at the form and the pattern of those sentences, right? We need to ask what sort of words, phrases, and clauses is being used in order for what they are in, right? All right. So if we look at the model sentence here at the bottom, it says the mouse's name. So the mouse's name was Tucker, right? And he was sitting in the opening of an abandoned drain pipe in the subway station at Times Square. All right. So this is basically us now. It's like you are still recreating a sentence, right? Or creating a new sentence, but now you have a model sentence, right? Certain patterns or orders, right? Or it's like phrases that you can also have within that sentence. All right. Let us quickly go to our test and see. We need to choose the model sentence. All right, so now we need to read the model sentence from Wendy Mass, right? Jeremy Fink, and the meaning of life. It says, since I'm such a picky eater, my mother feeds me peanut butter sandwiches at every meal, including breakfast and light midnight snacks. We need to use those words and phrases now to create a new sentence that matches the model. So we have a model sentence, but now we're going to create a new sentence that is going to match that model sentence. All right, so we can then say, since I can see my guide dog comes with me everywhere, including school and summer camp. All right, so the first one is correct. All right, so we chose the first one. We're now going to read the model sentence, right? It says, out on the lake, rattlesnakes and scorpions find shades under rocks and in holes dug by campers, right? So when with a model sentence, right? A model sentence is a sentence that is basically just given to us already, right? It's like, let's say, like, look at this one. It says, look at the model sentence here on top. It says, out on the lake, rattlesnakes and scorpions find shades under rocks and in the holes dug by campers, right? That is our model sentence. Now they're saying we need to use the words and the phrases to create a new sentence that you think would match the model, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to look exactly, it's not going to talk about snakes, it's not going to talk about scorpions, right? But we need to at least it's use the specific or the similar phrases when we, for example, try to create the sentences. Also, remember a sentence starts with a capital letter. So it says, in the early morning, men and women run around the track and stretch in the garden. Or we can say, men and women run around the track and stretch in the garden in the early morning. Yes. So if we look at our new sentence that we have created, it is option one, right? Option one, and that is, in the early morning, men and women run around the track and stretch in the grass. All right, let's do the last one and then we can definitely end, right? So, with dawn's first ray of light, a morning bell chimed brightly, waking Alden from his daydream. All right, and if we choose the correct one, we will choose, it says, with a fierce yell, I kicked the ball, sending it down the field. Or I kicked the ball, sending it down the field. If you look at the sentence, the second sentence, I kicked the ball. What do you think it starts with? It starts with a verb. And remember, with a sentence, when we create a sentence, it needs to start with a subject, right? A subject. So which means that the second option is not an option, right? All right, so that is now the end of our lesson on sentence creations. Remember, when we create our sentences, then there's a standard order when creating a sentence. And the standard order is you have a subject, you have a verb, and you have an object, right? And when we want to create a sentence based on a model, then it means that we need to follow the phrases that the model sentences also follows, right? And we also start with it being a noun phrase and a verb phrase, right? And also remember, a sentence starts with a capital letter. All right, so that is now the end of our lesson on sentence creations. Remember, when we write a sentence, we start with the subject, then a verb, and then we have our object. All right, so grade fours, you should have a good evening further. Goodbye.